Hello, welcome to the sixth episode of the Paranormal Lens Podcast presented by Jott-Nyx Paranormal. I am Jamie Widener, your host for this evening, along with Chad Thomas on that other
Hello.
screen. Mr. Thomas, sir, how are you?
I'm good, Jamie. How are you?
I'm hanging on, man. It's been a day. It's been, as I told you earlier, it's been an F a day.
hmm
Um, and I don't know how it happened. It just did. So, but all is better now. We're here.
Good. Yeah,
This is
it's
live,
Tuesday night. We're gonna spend an hour together with all our friends.
A whole hour? Wait, what? A whole hour?
A
No
whole
way.
hour.
All
So
right,
uh,
fine.
yeah,
No, all
I'm
good.
I'm sorry you didn't have a good day.
It's all right. It's we're due to have bumps every once in a while. So,
Mhm.
um, but it was what the heck. It was a what the heck after a what the heck.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
hey,
Mhm.
it's all good. No complaints. But while we're talking about things, how was your weekend?
Good. Let's see. We had an investigation, so there was
Sure
that.
did.
Uh,
Yeah,
had a lot of people. Uh,
we did. It was a very full house.
I think it was the most people we've had at the end in a long, long time. Everybody's not everybody, but most of the people seemed to stay.
Yeah.
And we had some interesting things happen, at least in the group I was in.
Well,
Um,
yeah, yeah,
um, had some great conversations with people before and like during breaks as well too. That was fun.
yeah.
Uh,
We had a curveball or two curveballs, I guess. One was an announced earlier start time than we were planning for. With a mix up in the ticketing side at the brewery, and then 40 guests instead of our usual 30. So there was a lot of people there a lot earlier than usual who were expecting something to happen at 9 o'clock instead
right.
of 10. So the team, I think that the whole team handled that very well.
And
On a curve, but not one that we couldn't hit.
right. And as Bert says, it's how you get up and continue.
Thanks, Bert.
That
That's
sort
true.
of that
And here we go. We're continuing. So
so,
uh, when
um,
in doubt, talk about paranormal stuff. Always makes
mhm.
you feel better.
So,
Makes it
but
all.
yeah, and Ben, I want to say the team did a great job, but the guests were very understanding and
Yeah,
accommodating as well. They were,
that's
maybe
true.
one or two were a little like, "Ugh," but no, everybody was great about it. So,
Yeah,
so
and I agree with you. The sessions were interesting. Folks were engaged, and sadly, the session we had upstairs in the ballroom was a little light on activity.
mhm,
However, it's not on demand, as we always say, and
right,
I think everybody was hanging out with your group in the bar, who would have normally been up with us, all the
mhm,
spirits of the house, and they certainly saved it all for the catacombs at the end.
yeah,
There's a lot of activity there, and it was nice to see a myriad of equipment being activated
hmm
and utilized by the spirits. And just it was a nice way to end. You're right, and having a lot of folks too. Maybe that was just all that
I know.
combined energy.
So, yeah, you didn't have much going on in the ballroom, but we actually had something a little different. Um, for anybody who goes to boobies with us at all and may know that Pauline typically will use a cat ball to communicate with us.
Mhm.
Um, Pauline was actually using a flashlight the other night
Oh, great!
and was very, very pointed. I had like three sensitives in my group, which made it very interesting as well.
Sure.
But she was very pointed through the one that she was tired of men telling her what to do, and me telling her to turn off the flashlight was not going over well. So I sort of and it was Alex and I leading. So I sort of said, "Okay, I'm going to step back, and I'd like the women in the group here to start asking questions and talking," and that worked really well. And it's the same thing that Heather has picked up that she's tired of not being heard. She wants her voice to be heard. She's tired of men telling her what to do, and so we let her talk, and it was interesting. So
Well, that's great. I mean, well, that is for the living as well as those who've passed. Reading the room is important when
mm,
you're told something or you're clearly getting something. You got to understand it and follow it.
mhm.
Instead of keep asking for the same things over and over again. When it clearly is not what they want to do or
Yeah.
attempt.
And I also learned that we shouldn't pigeonhole, our friends on the other side into certain pieces of equipment because they can use whatever they want whenever they want.
That's right.
So so
Very cool.
so yeah, that was a good thing. I do wanna take a moment to say, it is
Well,
Veterans.
Heather was comment here that she loves Paul. So
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah.
That's good. Great to see you, first of all, and thanks for the comment. We all do.
Yeah. I want to take a moment to recognize today is Veterans Day in the United States.
Yep.
Um, uh,
Correct.
so I want to take a moment to thank all those who have served and are serving for us. I guess, well, that would be Armed Forces Day, but all our veterans who have served, I want to take a moment to say thank you for your service. Thank you for everything that you've done for us. We owe you a great debt for everything that you've done to help keep us safe. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of serving,
Hmm.
um, let's change gears to get to the topic for tonight.
Okay.
Uh, let's talk about a building that has served hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, uh, called the Castle of Good Hope. And Chad, as we usually start out here, have you heard of this before? Anything?
I've heard of it, and that's where it ends. I've
Okay,
heard of it. So,
you're aware. Okay,
yeah.
well, good. Good. I mean, that's a starting point.
Hmm.
All right. So, well, what we always do is, where are we in the world first? The Castle of Good Hope, it kind of implies it might be related or connected to the Cape of Good Hope. And
Okay.
if you know your geography, that would put us in South Africa
Hmm.
and around the bottom. And in that, it is in what is now present day Cape Town. And it is still a structure that stands. So it is a well fortified or created fort that was meant to stand the test of time, and so far it has.
Hmm.
So let's get into it.
Okay.
We can start the slideshow. Get that
You
running.
want
I
me to
did
do
not
it? I
figure
think
out
I
where
can
that
take it.
button is. I have no idea where the button is. So we're working on. Noted this a couple of times now. The last couple of weeks, Chad's going to be away the week after next for 2 weeks, and I've got to figure out how to run this thing. I got it started, and that's as far as my notes took me. So um, I will get the rest of this before next week. But thank you. So I've dropped a pin there at the bottom, so you get a context where we are in the world. For us, we're way up there in North America, just a little bit in the middle of the East Coast of the United States. So we're pretty far away. This is not a road trip. Um, it's a plane trip or a boat
Okay.
trip, either way. But quite a trek to get there. And the Castle of Good Hope holds the distinction of being the oldest surviving colonial building still standing in South Africa.
Oh, wow.
And it is a physical reminder of the beginnings of the Dutch imperial ambitions at the southern tip of Africa. So it was built between 1666 and 1679 under the Dutch East India Company, or as it would have been called then, the Verenigde Oost-Indische Company, or VOC, as I'm going to call it, because I don't want to have to say that all over again. Uh, it symbolized both strategic military necessity and colonial permanence. So when Jan van Riebeek arrived at the Cape in 1652 with orders to establish a refreshment station for the VOC ships en route between Europe and the East Indies, his first structure was a modest clay and timber fort. His early fortification, known as Fort de Goede Hoop, was intended merely as a temporary shelter and storehouse. It needed a place to stop. It's this is called the rest stop along the highway. There's a long road between Europe and getting over to India, and this was a very strategic stop there because you need to replenish, you needed supplies. You only have so much fresh water, so many rations.
Hmm.
So it was meant just to be that place to land and stop for a while, a couple days rest, get back on the road again, and on your way. Stop back on the way back. They did not have a gift shop back then, though. Go
All right.
figure. Today they do, though. All right. However, as the Cape Colony grew and tensions with local Khoikhoi communities increased, coupled with the need for a more defensible station to protect against rival European powers, the VOC authorized a more durable and imposing fortress. Construction on the present stone castle began in 1666 under the direction of Commander Zacharias Widener. The materials were large local sandstone and lime made from seashells. Workers included soldiers, enslaved laborers, and convicts, reflecting the hierarchical and exploitative social structure of the colony. And I would like to point out that the use of local labor under harsh conditions foreshadowed the coercive systems that would define South African colonial society for centuries to come. But Chad, that's a different podcast for a different day.
Hmm.
Okay. So by 1679, the castle was largely complete. Its pentagonal bastion design, with bastions named Leerdam, Buren, Kat Enlelen, Bogen, Nassau, and Orange, followed the geometric ideals of the 17th century European fortification engineering, designed to eliminate blind spots and maximize defensive fire. Each bastion bore the name of a Dutch city or noble house, symbolizing the VOC's deep ties to the Netherlands and its aristocracy. The central courtyard held a well, warehouses, workshops, and the commander's residence, while the outer walls enclosed stables, a church, and administrative offices. For nearly 2 centuries, the castle was the political and administrative heart of the Cape Colony. The governor's residence, the council chamber, and the court of justice were located within its thick stone walls, making it both the center of governance and the site of law enforcement. Essentially, the castle functioned as the nucleus of colonial life, where the proclamations were made from the balcony above the main gate, and it's a tradition that continued into the 18th century. From this balcony, public announcements, punishments, and even executions were conducted, making the castle simultaneously a seat of order and a symbol of fear. Inside the castle, one could find barracks for soldiers, dungeons for prisoners, workshops, kitchens, a bakery, and living quarters for VOC officials and their families. The blend of domestic and military spaces reflects its dual role as both fortress and administrative hub, a microcosm of Dutch colonial authority. The castle's military function was tested multiple times. In 1795, when the British invaded the Cape, the castle served as the last bastion of Dutch defense, though it surrendered without extensive combat. During the brief Batavian Republic period of 1803 to 1806, it returned to Dutch control, only to be permanently occupied by the British the following the Battle of Balluburg in 1806. Under British rule, the castle retained its role as a military headquarters, with the Union Jack flying above its ramparts until the mid-20th century. It became the headquarters of the Cape Garrison and later the South African Army, housing regiments such as the Cape Town Highlanders. The British also made structural changes, adding more modern facilities while maintaining the overall pentagonal layout. Architecturally, the castle represents one of the finest examples of 17th century Dutch military engineering outside Europe, and its design adhered closely to the principles of Simon Stevin, the Flemish mathematician and engineer whose work on fortifications influenced Dutch colonial architecture worldwide. The castle's outer walls, reaching up to 10 meters thick at its base, provided formidable defenses, while its moat, which is now dry, once connected to Table Bay, allowing supply boats to dock near the walls. The main entrance, framed by the VOC's coat of arms and flanked by symbols of trade and navigation, asserted the company's authority in both commerce and governance. Inside, the dolphin pool and the governor's ballroom reflected the opulence of the colonial elite, contrasting starkly with the squalid condition of prisoners confined below ground. By the late 19th century, however, as military technology evolved and the coastline shifted due to land reclamation, the castle lost much of its strategic importance. The once waterfront fortress found itself nearly a kilometer inland, cut off from the sea it was meant to guard. By 1936, the castle was declared a national monument, marking a shift from military function to cultural preservation. This designation recognized its historical and architectural significance, though it remained under partial military occupation well into the 20th century. The Castle Military Museum was established within its walls, displaying artifacts from the VOC era through both world wars. The South African Heritage Resource Agency, or SARA, and Ezeco museums have since worked to transform the castle into a vocal heritage site, reflecting not only Dutch colonial perspectives but also indigenous and African histories. Recent restoration efforts have revealed hidden layers of the structure, from old graffiti etched by prisoners to original stonework buried under plaster. In 2016, during the castle's 350th anniversary celebrations, curators emphasized its transformation from a symbol of colonial oppression to a beacon of inclusivity and reconciliation. At that time, 4 bronze statues of African leaders, King Ketesh Wayo, King Sekhuk Hun, King Lang Ali Baleh, and Kozian leader Doman, were unveiled in the courtyard to honor resilience against colonial rule. This act symbolically recentered the castle as a place of shared history rather than a solely colonial relic. And today, the Castle of Good Hope serves as a living museum, housing the William Fair Art Collection. It's a major archive of colonial era paintings and furniture, as well as military and cultural exhibits. It is open to the public for tours, educational programs, and even paranormal investigations, reflecting its hybrid identity as both a natural monument and a haunted landmark. Guided tours showcase not only its architecture and history, but also its hidden tunnels, dungeons, and chambers, offering a tangible connection to the lives of soldiers, prisoners, and slaves who once lived and died here. The castle is also home to traditional ceremonies, historical reenactments, and heritage festivals, ensuring it remains a vibrant part of Cape Town's cultural landscape. Despite centuries of political transformation, from Dutch to British, from colonial to democratic rule, the castle endures as a complex manuscript of South African history. It is a place where military precision, architectural beauty, colonial exploitation, and spiritual mystery converge. A reminder that history often leaves behind both physical monuments and emotional ghosts.
Mhm.
So, a quick history.
Before you move on, Bert said you would think being at the tip of South of Africa, it would have been used during World War One.
And it was. It was an active military fort all through the eras, both world wars as well. So, um, and I think as well. First of all, we were dealing with masted ships back in the day. When the fort was founded, and our original colonization efforts from Europe around, and especially the trade route to India. Once we got into steam powered and then engine powered ships, we didn't have to hug the coastline as much.
Right.
So the fort, even though, and also some of those reclamation projects, taking back some of the land, moving the fort further inland, basically, it lost its direct prominence. Being a
Sure.
kilometer off the ocean is pretty far.
Yeah.
As far as the distance, so it didn't have that stronghold that it used to be. But
Right.
you could avoid it if you needed to,
Right.
going into that era.
Right. But it would be a long time to hold your bladder, as Bert said here earlier.
It certainly would be. So, well, that's a lot of history, but it's not a lot of paranormal stuff, right? So
Right.
that's kind of why we're here. So let's talk about that. So, as you can imagine, the castle has a few ghosts and stories attached to it. Here are a few of the most cited legends and phenomena. The first is the Gray Lady. One of the most frequent reports is of a woman in gray, sometimes described as a long cloak, walking or running through the grounds or inside the castle at night. Occasionally, she is covering her face or appears to be in distress. Some suggest she may be the ghost of Lady Anne Barnard, who lived in the castle in the late 18th century, somewhere between 1797 and 1802, when her husband was colonial secretary. The intrigue of the Grey Lady lies partly in the mixing of high colonial society, such as a lady in a ball gown, with the more brutal military prison past.
Mm-hmm.
The next is a tall figure on the ramparts. Another persistent legend is of a tall, luminous figure seen on the battlements or between the bastions, especially between Leerdam and Buren, who appears to jump or fall off the wall and vanish before hitting the ground. Some interpret this figure as the ghost of a soldier or a prisoner who leapt to his death or was pushed, perhaps out of despair. The visual of a body vanishing before impact makes for a dramatic ghost story, but it also ties in with the castle's function as a fortress with heights, drop zones, and executions. The next, the bell tower and the hanging soldier. The story is linked to a tall figure and the battlements. In the battlements is the legend of a soldier hanging himself by the rope of the bell tower. The bell tower has been bricked up long ago, and also it sometimes rings mysteriously.
Hmm.
The next, the black dog. Another story mentions a spectral black dog that lurks on the castle grounds or appears suddenly and lunges at people, but then vanishes. The black dog is a common motif in ghost folklore worldwide. It's sometimes a harbinger of death and sometimes noted as a restless spirit. And its presence here adds a bestial, primal dimension to the haunted space. And the last one is that there are just generally voices, footsteps, and cold spots in the dungeon. Visitors, staff, and tour guides frequently report hearing footsteps in the corridors of the dungeon or the Donkergat, disembodied voices arguing near the guard room, and sudden drops in temperature, as well as the feeling of being watched. All of those things are familiar, right, Chad?
Mm-hmm.
So these stories overlap and reinforce each other. The castle's architecture with deep dungeons, battlements, old prison cells, tunnel-like corridors, facilities echoing, and the shadows and chilly spots all feed into the haunted narrative. Moreover, the historical reality of punishment, death, and colonial violence gives the ghost stories a context rather than being purely invented. From heritage perspective, the haunted stories can be a double-edged sword. On one hand, they draw interest, visitors, and attention to the site, which may help preservation funding and public engagement. On the other hand, there is a risk of sensationalizing or trivializing the darker aspects of its history, such as slavery, colonial violence, and imprisonment. The narratives of ghosts often focus on dramatic apparitions rather than the living humans suffering of colonial subjects. A balanced heritage interpretation might use the paranormal dimension as a way into deeper reflection. For example, the ghostly footsteps in a dungeon may prompt a visitor to ask, who was imprisoned here? And what was their fate? Rather than simply, did I just see a ghost? In researching the castle, it struck me that the ghost stories are not only about spooks and thrills, but may function as a metaphor. The footsteps in empty corridors represent the once voiceless. The shadow figures on the ramparts may represent unseen soldiers, prisoners, or colonial agents. And the Grey Lady may represent the unsettled memory of colonial elite lives in a place built for domination. Ghosts in historic places often stand in for what has been hidden, erased, or suppressed. So, to wrap this up, the Castle of Good Hope is more than just a fortress museum in Cape Town. It is a living archive of colonial architecture, military discipline, imprisonment, and heritage interpretation. Its haunted reputation is rooted in that complex history and embodied in the walls, cells, and corridors. The ghost stories from the Grey Lady and the spectral jumper to the black dog and dungeon whispers give visitors a shiver, but they also point to deeper questions about memory, power, and legacy. As long as the walls remain and visitors walk the battlements, the castle will continue to invite those drawn by both history and the supernatural. Whether one believes in ghosts or not, the haunted narratives of the castle encourage us to ask, whose lives echoed in these corridors, whose footsteps remain in the dark, and how do we today interpret a building that once symbolized authority and now invites reflection? Let me cite some sources and we'll discuss.
Mm-hmm.
So, first and obvious is thecastleofgoodhope.co.za. The next is hezekiah.org.za/museums/the Castle of Good Hope. The littlehouseofhorrors.com, Castle of Good Hope. Sarah.com.za, Castle of Good Hope. SouthAfrica.net. N Travel article, The Beginnings of Colonial History of the Castle of Good Hope. HenryFagan.com, The Castle of Good Hope, an enigmatic relic of the past. MattyMedia.org, The Ghosts of the Castle of Good Hope. ParanormalForum.net, Threads, Castle of Good Hope, 10960. And lastly, CapeTownETC.com, Things to Do in Cape Town / Cape Town Haunted Places. So, Chad, when can we go?
Well, Bert wants to know, and who's paying for the plane tickets?
Well, that's a great question. I think this one we're going to have to stow away somewhere to afford it, especially with the cost of things these days, and a lack of air traffic controllers here in the U.S. currently.
Yeah.
So maybe we take a boat.
Yeah. That's going to be a long trip. But
with better conditions than it would have had traveling in the 16 and 1700s.
This is true. So It's interesting that most of the stories that are there are stories that we find almost every place that's haunted.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
I noted that too. You're absolutely right.
and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just it seems we have typical stories everywhere, and that but there's commonalities in every place like this. There would have been officers' wives in ball gowns. There would have been dogs. There would have been soldiers who were prisoners. There would have been, all these things are commonalities in all the, a lot of these same places. So
Yeah.
it's not surprising that we have,
Well,
same stories.
it made me think of Fort Mifflin.
Hmm.
Here for us locally, and just in the south side of Philadelphia, here in Pennsylvania. One of the our colonial forts that was key to our success in the American Revolution against the British. Um,
Hmm.
a star fort there. Um, so very similar, technically similar design, not as big by any means,
Right.
um, but one that was intended to be defensible against angles and um, walls that are at least the same 10-meter thick window of space and size, just not
Right.
as high a wall, not as intense design on the interior. So it didn't have the longevity and necessity probably either that the Castle Good Hope has.
Right.
But we've been there. We did an episode on it. We've walked the fort, and the commandant's house being in the middle, the blacksmith shop, the barracks, all the stuff that is traditional, to what you would have needed. Everything had to be in the walls, um,
Hmm.
because something could have be happening on the outside that you weren't going to go get it. That was also a moated, well, surrounded by water, not technically a moat, but a fort there where a supply vessel could come and replenish through the South Sally port.
Right.
So it made me think of that a lot. Obviously, I looking at the images, the scale is drastically larger, but just the manpower that would have taken. And thanks, Heather. No dolphin pool. True. We were there when there was a lot of water in the fort, so
There could have been dolphins.
it could have been. Jeez. Um, we were knee deep at one point. Um, ugh. But I totally lost my place. The time that the 13 years, that's a long time to be building something. But
Mhm.
it had to happen that way with lack of materials and tools, and this is the 1600s, late
Right.
1600s, technically middle 1666. That's a long time ago,
Right.
and the means and materials weren't readily available. So, these things had to be sourced. I think it's ingenious to, create lime out of seashells because that was something that was at least readily available,
Hmm.
but only so much of it, in the region around their area. You harvest it, you're done. It doesn't come back. It's
Right.
not a replenishable resource necessarily. So
Not
you're
not a
really
quickly replenish it.
right. Better way of saying it. Thank you. So they were making this happen, as best they could with the resources and materials they had, and the manpower as
Mhm.
well. Hence, they had slaves. Hence, they had convicts. And it always seems that there's criminals building these kind of things. The forced labor that they are, and it's obviously, don't do the crime if you don't want to do the time. I
Right.
guess always falls in here, but and it is something though that is beyond what a common situation would be for us today. There aren't work gangs anymore,
Right.
for a lot of reasons. But and in that, the management that it would have taken to oversight all these folks who definitely didn't want to be doing what they were made to do,
Mhm.
um, was shows a sheer volume of the power of the VOC, and how big they were. In the time, and then, and in addition to that, like the British East India Company, another one that was a competitor. The
Mhm.
threat of them coming at any time. Especially the idea of taking something you've created from you.
Right.
The pressure must have been immense to get this right.
Hmm. Yeah. It's definitely a lot there.
Yeah,
It's just the fact that it lasted so long and was used through the world wars. Just a lot of energy. Here we
well,
are again, another place that just has had so much energy.
we say it every week where there's passion, there's energy, and then there's energy, there's activity, and I can't. I can't see how it couldn't be active,
Right.
given its history, given the volume of the stories are all out there still, but the idea
Mhm.
that they weren't welcome. First of all, the Dutch certainly weren't welcome. The British were no more welcome, as a replacement.
Right.
Um, and the things that they did to maintain their presence, wasn't always. There weren't treaties necessarily. It was more of a forced will
Right.
against the locals and the natives, and it's no that story is no different anywhere around the world.
Yeah.
Whoever's in power, does what they want as long as they have the power to do it.
Mhm.
And they certainly did have the resources to be that overlord. And that's looking back. Obviously, it's something that's regrettable.
Yeah. So,
Well, I don't have a whole lot more to add there. So
yeah.
unless you do, I think we can always.
No, I mean, again, it's one that I knew very little about, and it just it's got to be a daunting structure. Like it's huge
Yeah.
from what I can tell, and
But you can't, the slides that have gone by, you can't get a full shot of the place,
Mhm.
and still be able to tell that you have to go so far back, from the sides of it. It's amazing how large it is.
Mhm.
Um, and in the aerial views, I believe there's one at the beginning of the show. You get a better feel for it, but you still, you're so
Right.
high, you don't get context to the streetscape, what it takes up.
Right.
I guess I'd liken it to Eastern State Penitentiary.
Okay.
How and then that's local for us in Philadelphia, PA. But it was built on the edge of town at one point, and so was the fort. It was the town,
Right.
and Cape Town didn't quite exist as it is, or certainly not as it is now. But it really,
Right.
that settlement established off the fort. Whereas, with Eastern State, it was on the edge of the city of Philadelphia, but now it's in the heart of it. Like it's right in the city,
Right.
because everything built around it. And, you kind of take it for granted, I guess, because it's there. And I can't say that's the case in Cape Town, but, it's been there longer than anyone,
Mhm.
as far as the colonists. So,
Right.
it's just part of the way it is now. There it is when you go by it.
Right. Bert says that would be hard to maintain that far from home.
Sure.
So,
Absolutely.
like, you would need to, you know, you would need to be getting all your materials, storing them there, controlling them, keeping them safe. Um, and I did pull up a picture that you, like you said, to get the complete structure, internal and main structure in a slide or in an aerial photo, you lose all the detail.
Yeah.
So,
That's such an elevation that you can't see much of it.
mhm. I mean, I find it interesting how it is the internal is connected, whereas like Fort Mifflin, it was all individual buildings.
Mhm.
The picture of this shows that there was like one main structure north to south, or on that axis in our picture, with the whole area sort of built out. So that structure in itself must be huge.
Yeah, I agree.
Um, so yeah, definitely interesting. So thank you, Jamie, for digging into it and uh, educating us all on another place that we just didn't know about.
Cool.
So,
Well, I'll say this before we move on, and we have listeners around the world. So if there is anyone listening from in South Africa who has been to Cape Town and seen the fort, drop us your opinion, your perspective, you having seen it, or hopefully experienced it as well. If you
mhm,
had the opportunity to go inside, where you how you feel about it, or what you sensed of it, because that we're not there, and
right,
that's the disadvantage of covering a topic from afar. We're doing research around all the available material, but we're not touching it.
right,
And as much as we'd love to get there someday, and maybe so, it might happen, but the reality is it's probably not going to happen for a while.
right.
Um, so the local perspective always is curious to us, and
Hmm.
we appreciate the feedback if able.
Right. And it's different because it's not a tourist opinion.
Yeah, it's
So
true.
it's more from those experiencing it on day to day, or yeah. So very cool. So I
All
like
right,
it. Yeah.
cool. Let's see what else we got going on.
Well, we're going to show a list of upcoming episodes, but we have a caveat to this, don't we, Jamie?
We do. We do. We have
So,
a we have an announcement, I guess, and now's probably the best time.
okay.
So when we started the program way back when, there were three of us. It was Chad, myself, and our teammate David Daramidi. And David was one of the drivers. Of course, we all planned this together. But Dave had a business venture that he felt he needed to follow, and had to step away because of the time commitment that it would take. And so Chad and I have picked it up and ran with it ever since. But we've kept that mindset of how we could have a third voice. So we had a conversation with our teammate Kirsten Tricano, and she has agreed to join us going forward. So next week, you will find three faces on the screen, and an extra voice in Kirsten, who is a dynamic investigator, a
Hmm.
really fun person to hang out with, and
Hmm.
um, a different perspective than Chad and I as far
Yeah.
as the topics to cover and the direction of that conversation to go. So
So,
we're both very excited. I'm
mhm.
speaking for you, Chad, I guess, but
No, no,
um,
I
I think I can say that we're both very excited to have her join us, and I'm looking forward to where we go.
yeah. And I don't want to take away her thunder, but she definitely has some other skills, other background
Yes.
that she'll be able to share, and that always brings a different opinion. And I'm thrilled that we're going to have like you said, a third voice to uh, to partake.
Yep.
So,
Stefan, thank you. That's it. We're good. It's good for us to hear too.
yeah,
So, and
'cause
that
hope,
kind of we're
hope,
going to say that we have the upcoming episodes then.
right.
However, we each are knowledge experts for those episodes. So I know that the next three are locked in, but somewhere after the 9th of December, we may see a change there, and maybe not. We got to do St. Augustine, since you're coming back from Florida, I guess.
Yeah.
But coming into this, those episodes will probably change a little bit. So more to come on it. We'll put it out there, of course, in advance, and
Mhm.
give Kirsten a little time to settle in and get going on what she wants to talk about, and we'll see where it takes us again.
You'll see that list populating with stuff from her soon. So,
Yep,
so.
very cool.
But what we do have upcoming currently is next week. I'm going to jump on that third corner of the historic triangle in Virginia, which is Williamsburg. That was sort of well, it was the capital for a long time, and a very storied history. Lots going on there. Definitely lots of energy that has turned into lots of continual energy. So it's one of my favorite places to visit. I could see myself settling in that area of the country in a few years. So, like an area that I really like, but want to share the stories there. I've done several ghost tours down there with the Williamsburg historic, the colonial Williamsburg team, and they're just amazing what they tell. And they said they have a book of things, and they just you go on a tour and you see like four stories, and they have a complete book of things that they can pull from. So
Gotcha.
yeah,
That's cool.
yeah. So then I'm away November 25th. I'm doing some research a little further south. Um, and in with a vacation. So Jamie is going to be here with Kirsten and Steve Dills. I guess we better warn Kirsten, huh?
I tried to. I don't think I gave her everything yet on this, though.
So
Reading the description an evening with Steve Dills, I think it implies it's like a black tie affair. You know, like we should probably dress up. Oh
maybe, yeah.
goodness, now
I'll
there's
get you a
pressure.
T-shirt with the black tie. The printed the black.
Well, yeah, tuxedo T-shirt. Yep.
There you go. So, but always a good time. Grab your popcorn, go to the bathroom, and buckle in for a wild ride.
Oh, the benefit of everyone listening is that you get to pause or step away.
Uh-huh.
I gotta sit here the whole time. Um, oh, Steve,
Yeah.
I'm so looking forward to this.
Yep. Then December 2nd, TDSE, Ron Iacovetti and Lourdes Gonzalez are going to update us on where they are with things. Things have changed for them in the last couple of years, and it's in a good way. So, looking forward to hearing where they're coming from these days. December 9th, Jamie's going to be tackling Urban Legends Volume 3, Local Legends.
Yep.
He's going to have a man that we investigated with this past weekend, and I'm drawing a blank on his name. It's a good friend of Jamie's.
A man, like how you went. Corey Ashwell
Corey.
was going to join us.
Yes.
He was a local paranormal investigator as well, a friend of mine, and he's I guess I said this last week, but he's always leaning on me saying, "Hey, did you know about this? Hey, do you know about that?" On the local side, and I'm like, "Dude, why don't we just get you on? You can
Yeah.
just tell us all about everything." And
Yeah.
I touched base with him the other day, and I said, "Are you getting ready for this?" He's like, "Oh my gosh, I gotta figure out what not to do." So that might be another Steve Dill's epic episode kind of length. So,
Mhm.
and Ryan and Lord is they can talk about whatever they want. So that might be a long one. So a
Yep.
couple weeks in a row, this will be
Yep.
great.
So, and then December 16th, like I said, we're planning St. Augustine Lighthouse. I will be visiting down there, doing uh, I think it's Dark of the Moon tour is what it's called at 10:15 on Saturday, December 30th, I think, or not November 30th. Um, yeah, yeah. So I'm looking forward to that. Get to climb the stairs of the lighthouse in the dark with glow sticks.
Nice.
So that'll be a lot of fun.
All right. Well, if you start hearing some like rave music, at least you got your sticks.
Yeah, exactly.
Unk,
So,
unk, unk.
really looking forward to that one, and then being able to share what I learn, and maybe some pictures. Who knows? So,
Cool. Very
but
cool.
Alex and I will be doing that tour, so maybe we'll have to drag Alex in that night.
There you go.
We'll see.
Hey, why not? He's no stranger here.
That is true. He's just strange.
Yes. Well, he's your kid, so
Exactly.
man.
So, um, so we have a little bit of news about this slide as well. Jott-Nyx Paranormal Investigations. You don't see anything for next year. You see December 6th at Booby's Brewery. This will be our last investigation as a team at Booby's Brewery. We've decided as a team that it's time to take a step away from this, and the spirits will still be there. We won't be there every month. We might pop in and do an investigation as a team every now and then, but we won't be hosting public investigations. Not sure what Sam's planning in the future, but I'm sure whatever it is, it'll be fun, interesting, because he's always got something going on there. So
True that. Yes.
so
It's been a good run. It's been 5+ years. It's just time for a change and
mhm.
just transition to something else for us as a group.
So, but
So
that being said, I can't get to the count anymore because there's only one left. So it doesn't list how many people are at each or how many tickets are left for each one. There were 33 last time I saw. They may not last, especially this being the last for our group. So if you want them, get them soon.
yep. Don't wait. As always, don't wait.
Yep. And then let's see, we've got how you can get in touch with us. There's the website, jot-nyxparanormal.com, jot-nyxparanormal.com. You can email us at paranormallenspodcast@gmail.com. And you can check out our link tree, which is linktr.ee/paranormal lens. And that will connect you with everything that we do, all our social medias. Which again, Kirsten is another one who's pretty good on the social media stuff, Jamie.
I know. I know. Some
So
work on there too.
you might see our
Yes.
TikTok picking up a little bit. Well, you might see our TikTok start again because
Or
we
at all.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but there's links to our store, some other stuff on there. So check that out if you get a chance. You were talking about earlier about how we were seen in different countries. We're up to 45, right?
Yep. That's
So
true.
you wanted to hit that 40 mark, and we hit 40, and we kept going.
But don't stop there, right?
Exactly. And Spotify, I think we have 6,500 streams now,
Okay.
a little more than that. So we're definitely the ball has started rolling, and I think it's good. And we want to thank everybody for taking the time to spend an hour, 45 minutes to an hour with us. Well, if Steve's on 2.5 hours on a Tuesday night, we know there's lots of things you can do with your time, lots of other podcasts out there that are live, but we really appreciate you taking the time to spend it with us. And even if you're, even checking it out the next day or later in the week or whenever it is, just thank you. We really appreciate it. It's what keeps us going. We could have given up on this a long time ago. We have a lot of episodes, and we've gotten emails saying, "Wow, you've gotten more episodes than most podcasts do." So
Who
that's
knew?
nice. Yeah, nice to hear.
Yeah, it is.
So, and then we get
And I got to put Bert's comment up here.
yeah.
Love you guys. Keep up the great work, Kyle. Love you too,
So,
Bert. Thank you.
so yeah,
You're the
thanks.
best.
We appreciate it. So, yeah. Anything else, Jamie?
I don't think so. It was a fun topic to investigate. A place I've known about for a while.
Mm,
The history in Africa in general. It's forever old, and uh, the colonization era was very much like what happened in the U.S. here in America. There were indigenous folks who were caught in a place and that they weren't able to that weren't they weren't in a place where they were able to retaliate or come out from it, and bad things happen. And I appreciate the current situation with the castle being one where they're remembering all of the cultural history, not just the colonial history. And I
mm,
think that's so very important, and such a good representation, a fair representation that it didn't happen just by the Dutch arriving on the shore.
right.
It was everyone that
Right.
has gotten to this place. So, and let's not forget that.
Yeah.
And
I,
it's really
I
cool.
I think that is important, that we have to look at these places not just under a microscopic lens, but under a wider historical, that multiple things have happened,
Yep.
and longer than we even know what was on the ground. So,
And of course, a paranormal lens.
well, and yes,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's that thing that slides in front, right? That just gives it. So
Yep.
whatever.
So,
So,
I assume you have an outro.
I sure. So just a real quick question: Are you ending the live, or am I ending the live?
I can press a button that says "end broadcast." So yes, I will take care of that.
So, well, we got to get the outro rolling before we do that, though. But just to wrap it up, so as the echoes of the Castle of Good Hope fade into the night, we're reminded that history often hides more than it reveals. Whether ghosts or grounded in truth, its stories continue to haunt the walls and our imaginations. So until next time, stay alert, stay respectful, and stay curious. Good night, everybody.